Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we've got a stack of source material that, on the surface, seems pretty different. We have ancient legal codes, letters to early communities, a psalm of blessing, and a really critical story from the gospel.
And we're linking them all together.
Exactly. Our mission is to do a deep dive into how guidance, obedience, and trust really work, especially when the path ahead is, filled with fear and uncertainty.
We're basically synthesizing sources that ask a huge high-stakes question. How do you take decisive, faithful action when you're working with incomplete information? And the stakes are, quite literally, life and death.
And the anchor for all of this, the thing that gives confidence, is that incredible promise. He watches over you, and he does not slumber.
That promise is the bedrock.
It is, but what's so interesting is that the sources all show that this protection isn't about passive waiting. Not at all. It demands intense, active, and immediate obedience.
And to really see what that looks like in practice, we have to start with the case study in Matthew.
The obedience of St. Joseph.
Right. What's so fascinating here is that Joseph's actions are they're entirely reactive, but they're always immediate. He's the ultimate example of critical listening, in his case, through dreams, and then just swift physical action. He doesn't sit around debating the logistics.
No, he just executes the plan.
He just goes.
Okay, so let's unpack this sequence because it's just one radical disruption after another. The first big moment happens right after the wise men leave. The angel of the Lord appears to Joseph in a dream with this incredibly urgent command. Rise, take the child and his mother, flee to Egypt, and stay there until I tell you.
And the reason is clear. It's an existential threat from Herod, who is actively trying to destroy the child.
This isn't just, advice to relocate for a better job.
Oh, not at all. This is an urgent escape from a tyrant. I mean, think about the scale of this instruction for a second.
Yeah.
Joseph is told to pack up his infant son, his wife, leave his entire life behind, and move to a foreign country, Egypt. And do it now.
And that now is the whole point, isn't it? The immediacy. He doesn't wait for daylight or for a week to get supplies ready.
No, the text is so specific.
It is. It says he rose and took the child and his mother by night and departed for Egypt.
By night. He just commits to exile instantly under the cover of darkness. That level of trust, of active obedience, it completely changes his life in a single moment.
It really speaks to the nature of divine guidance in these sources.
It does. It often means disruption, discomfort, and running from everything you know. Joseph stays in Egypt until the threat Herod is gone, and that fulfills the first prophecy. Out of Egypt I called my son.
But the disruption just keeps coming.
Right.
After Herod's death, the angel shows up again in a dream.
Right, with it all clear to return to Israel.
So they pack up again, probably thinking, okay, we can finally go back to normal life. But this is where it gets really interesting because Joseph's, his own rationality kicks in.
It does. While they're traveling, he hears that Archelaus is ruling Judea. And for you, the listener, it's so important to understand why this was terrifying.
Yeah, who was Archelaus?
Archelaus was the son of Herod the Great, and he basically inherited all of his father's cruelty and volatility. The danger wasn't gone, it had just changed hands. Joseph's fear was completely rational.
So they're getting close to where they want to be, and this fear just stops them dead in their tracks.
Exactly. And this forces a third divine intervention. His very rational fear is addressed by another warning in a dream, which guides him away from Judea altogether.
Right. It directs him to the less politically tense region of Galilee.
And that's such a beautiful lesson in continuous guidance. Obedience isn't a one-and-done thing. It's a whole series of course corrections. And this specific redirection is what leads them to settle in Nazareth.
Which is framed as the second prophetic fulfillment mentioned in the sources. He shall be called Nazorian. And that phrase, he shall be called a Nazorian, I think it's often seen as just stating their hometown. But what our sources are pointing to is that this wasn't just logistics. It was a destiny, a title, a fulfillment that only happened because Joseph was willing to listen to these dreams and change his life path again and again.
Even if it meant moving from one place of comfort to, a place of total obscurity.
It just underscores that divine guidance often involves massive uncertainty.
And that faithful action means moving before you have the whole picture.
Okay, so let's transition from that intense personal story, Joseph's immediate action, to the prescribed rules for human relationships and community harmony laid out in our other sources. Joseph's story tells us how to follow unique instruction. These next texts sort of tell us how to build a stable, blessed life after that.
That's a great way to put it. The sources basically give us two different but complementary codes of conduct for family and community. There's the ancient code of honor in Sirach, which is rooted in authority and consequence.
And then the newer code of virtue in Colossians, which is all about love and transformation.
Exactly.
So let's start with Sirach, that ancient code. This source sets up a really firm structure of authority. It says, God sets a father in honor over his children, and a mother's authority he confirms over her sons.
It immediately frames the family unit as the foundation for everything, for all of society.
And the rewards for honoring this structure are not abstract.
Yeah.
They're incredibly concrete.
Oh, very. The text says, whoever honors his father atones for sins. It directly links family respect, not just to social order, but to spiritual well-being. It's a kind of spiritual debt relief.
Wow. Okay, let's just sit with that for a second.
Yeah.
So respecting your parents isn't just a polite custom. It's a spiritual mechanism for reconciliation. It says honoring them literally preserves himself from sins, makes sure his prayers are heard, and causes him to store up riches. It's like an investment strategy for life.
It puts immense weight on those foundational duties. And then the text goes straight to what is probably the hardest duty, caring for the elderly.
It warns, take care of your father when he is old, grieve him not as long as he lives. That was so crucial in ancient society where there were no safety nets.
Right. And the specific instruction on declining mental health is it's incredibly profound. It shows so much foresight.
What does it say exactly?
It says, even if his mind fail, be considerate of him, revile him not all the days of his life. It anticipates the frustration that caregiving brings and just makes kindness this non-negotiable duty.
And that act of kindness, that patience with a parent whose mind is failing.
That's what is firmly planted against the debt of your sins. It ties that most difficult family duty directly back to the highest spiritual reward. Atonement. Justice.
That's the ancient duty-bound code.
Yeah.
But now we pivot pretty sharply to Colossians, where the focus shifts from an external duty to an internal disposition.
Yes.
This is where we get that powerful metaphor of putting on new garments.
Exactly. The listeners are called God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, and they're told to get rid of the old ways and put on these new virtues. It's not just about being polite, it's a total internal transformation.
Starting with what?
Heartfelt compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience.
So the standard for how you act every day is it's radically elevated. And because conflict is going to happen,
Of course.
the source gives a clear path for handling it, bearing with one another and forgiving one another. We're told to forgive just as the Lord forgave us. That's the standard. Divine mercy.
And all of this internal cultivation of virtue, it all culminates in the unifying principle. After listing all these traits, the text insists over all these put on love, that is, the bond of perfection.
Love is the glue.
It's the glue. It's the structural integrity holding that whole building of virtue together.
That's a key distinction. Sirach defined the structure through authority. Colossians defines how you live in that structure through internal love. It sets the whole tone for community life.
A life of thankfulness, rich teaching, and singing psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs with gratitude.
And then the text brings this new garment of virtue right back into the household structure. It mirrors Sirach, but it tempers the duties with these relational considerations.
It does. You see that dual instruction emerge so clearly. Wives are told to be subordinate to their husbands, yes, but then the counterbalance comes right away.
Husbands must love their wives and avoid any bitterness toward them. So the structure is there, but the way you maintain it is dictated by love and patience.
And that continues for the children. Obey your parents in everything. But then comes that crucial moment of balance. The instruction that follows is aimed directly at the father.
Exactly. Why is the instruction to fathers not to provoke their children placed right there, right after children are told to obey in everything? What's the source trying to balance?
It's balancing authority with mercy. The source gets the huge power imbalance in a parent-child relationship. If children have to obey everything, then the parent, especially the father with the primary authority, has to use that power gently.
Or else they'll provoke their children so they may not become discouraged.
Right. Authority shouldn't crush the spirit of a child. It has to be used with kindness, informed by all those virtues we just talked about.
That shifts the whole discussion. It's not just a rule book. It's a holistic, balanced system designed to prevent the abuse of power while keeping necessary order.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, we've seen the immediate action needed for guidance with Joseph's flight. We've seen the behavioral codes for life from Sirach and Colossians. Now we look at the guaranteed reward structure in Psalm 128. What are the specific promised benefits for someone who commits to this life?
Well, the entry point is still conditional, right at the start.
Cool.
Blessed is everyone who fears the Lord, who walks in his ways. The blessing is guaranteed, but only if you meet that criteria of respectful obedience.
And the rewards are so beautifully tangible, they focus on earthly prosperity and family flourishing. The person will eat the fruit of your own handiwork. That's a fundamental promise of economic stability.
Their labor won't be wasted. You'll be productive, you'll be rewarded, you'll be blessed and favored.
Yeah.
But the imagery used for the family structure is probably the most evocative part of the psalm. The wife is described as being like a fruitful vine in the recesses of your home.
That image speaks directly to security and abundance. A vine means fertility, life, and productiveness. And putting it in the recesses of your home emphasizes internal stability. It's a promise of a secure, flourishing life inside the home.
And the children aren't forgotten. They're described as like olive plants around your table. That is such a powerful image of stability and longevity.
Olive plants, olive trees. They were synonymous with deep-rooted prosperity in the ancient world. They're long-lasting, valuable, highly productive. It just paints this picture of a stable, numerous, long-living family all together around the table.
So this whole psalm is really an assurance that obedience leads to physical, material, and spiritual peace.
And it extends beyond just the household, too. The final blessing is promised from Zion, the spiritual heart. And it guarantees the person will see the prosperity of Jerusalem all the days of your life.
So it connects personal blessing directly to the flourishing of the whole community, the whole society.
The full system connects it all. Active, faithful action, even when it's hard and disruptive, like in Joseph's life, connects to dutiful relationships bound by virtue and love, which ultimately guarantees a blessing of deep-rooted stability and favor.
Absolutely. So this deep dive has shown that the promise of protection, he watches over you and does not slumber. It really requires this intense, active, often disruptive obedience. We see that perfectly in Joseph's repeated, urgent actions of flight and redirection.
And that foundation of trust is then held up by a code of virtue and duty for relationships.
Which ultimately leads to the promise of holistic prosperity and favor we see in Psalm 128.
And you know, what really stands out to me in the end is that guidance often forces us out of our comfort zone, and obedience often requires massive physical movement.
Yeah.
Joseph's trust meant he had to continually change his zip code, not just his attitude.
That really is the challenge these sources present to us today. It's not about finding comfort where we are. It's about choosing obedience, even when it means leaving our known world behind. The source material kind of ends with a direct question for us.
It does. It forces us to ask, what specific act of obedience or trust is being asked of you today, even if it leads you out of your comfort zone, away from the familiar, and into a completely new direction?
A potent thought to carry with you. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive.